Hello everyone, my name is Max. Welcome to Design Talk. In this video, we will talk about the second section of buttons. If you haven't watched the first part of the series, feel free to see. I've put the link on the description. So, let's get started. Part 1, Button States and Feedback. Button states give user information whether they can click or have clicked, or had successfully clicked a button. You should also remember that a button can have overlapping states. This means that button can have two or more states altogether. For instance, a button could be in active and hover states at the same time. To have better understanding about button states, let's break down some of it. 1. Active and disabled state. The active state is when a button is clickable in web or tappable in mobile. That may sound a bit obvious. But the important thing to note here is that a button can be disabled if the user hasn't completed the required steps. For example, if a user hasn't entered their username and password, they wouldn't be able to log in to their account. 2. Hover and hover off, or we can say mouse over and mouse off. This state only applies to desktop devices. Buttons generally have different states to let the user know that it is clickable. When users are about to click the button, they will see an animation. It is meant to encourage them to click on those buttons. Normally, a hover off state will be the opposite of a hover on state, but not necessarily. You might want to show users that they had previously hovered over a button. Let me remind you that this hover states will never be seen on tablet and mobile. The reason is obviously because our fingers can't hover. Therefore, when designing for an app, no need to worry about this state. 3. Focus state. The focus state is to show that some buttons are actually clickable. Normally, the default color for focus state is blue, glow. You should have seen this during your internet explorations but may be unaware too. Fortunately, now we can customize our own button states. Most designers more likely to use the same visual color for hover and focus states. The best example of a focus state is when you click on an input field. If you were to start typing, only that input field and not another would start changing colors. Part 2, Button Labeling. The key to button labeling is consistency. Being consistent in applying label will help you a lot in your project. By having this consistency, then you can apply your design rules early on in a project. This will also avoid having to painstakingly change all your button copy later on. 1. Verbs plus nouns. The majority of buttons have verbs on their label to indicate what the button will perform. Button labels like save, publish, and edit are verbs. On the other hand, back and next aren't verbs. In terms of an interface, they may look to work in the same way. Nevertheless, it would be better to keep the verb plus noun structure when assigning button labels. In doing this, it makes the action more prescriptive. For example, save post and next step are opposed to save and next. Of course, in the end, the choice is up to you and your users. 2. Case. While designing buttons, you should also decide on what type of case to use. Let's have some of the rules that you can apply to your design. Firstly, all caps. For example, next page. This case will make your buttons look more professional. And for your information, Material Design also uses buttons with all caps. Secondly, sentence case. For instance, next page. This case will be suitable for more friendly or conversational project. If you take a look at it, yes indeed, it is sentence case, and of course, there should be a full stop. But for your own good, do not add any full stop. Because this is a button label, not a sentence. Thirdly, title case. For example, next page. This type of case will not really look like a sentence. It is more like a title. You can use this case in a project between professional and conversational. Last but not least, lowercase. For instance, next page. Just like title case. You shouldn't use lowercase buttons labels that often. This type of case would be more appropriate to more causal project. 3. Consistency. In any project, you will find a lot of buttons with different function and label. Even though they have different function, you have to make sure they are consistent. Here are some guidelines I like to set in place at the beginning of a project. Firstly, choose amount of words. For example, you can either have 1 word, 2 words or more words per button. Secondly, choose case. You have to choose the case either as sentence case, uppercase, title case, or lowercase. Last but not least, like we discussed earlier, label structure. For example, you can either select verb plus noun, just verb, or verb plus a plus noun. Remember, no matter which option you choose in amount of words, case, and label structure, be consistent and stick to it. Part 3. Touch targets. Firstly, button sizing for desktop. You probably wonder what the standard button size for desktop screen are. Just because the size of the cursor on desktop is small, doesn't mean that you have to make small buttons as small as the cursor as well. That would obviously give the user a hard time looking for the button. It is your responsibility as designer to work out the correct hierarchy and navigation for your interface. I usually use 100 px in weight and 40 px in height for a standard button. Of course, you have to adjust the button size with the button label as well. Secondly, button sizing for touchscreen. What I mean by designing for touchscreen is designing for mobile or tablet. This requires users to tap or drag the screen to interact with the app. There will be no cursor. MIT Touch Lab studies showed that the part of the finger used for touching screens is 8 to 10 millimeters. Because of that, the minimum target size has to be 10 millimeters or larger. The purpose of this is to help users who have fat finger. In the end, you might be wondering about the best size for touchscreen buttons. According to Material Design, the touch target should be 48 dp x 48 dp with 8 dp between different touch points. This applies to Android mobile phone. While for iOS, the general understanding is that its minimum target size is 44 by 44 pts. Last but not least, button position. When there are primary and secondary buttons side by side, how we position them is always debatable. We will always question where we should put the primary and the secondary. Here are those two options. Option 1 shows the primary button on the left. The reason is because we would like the user wants to see first, therefore show it first. Like I said in the first video, it is also meant that we expect users to prioritize the button over the other. Option 2 shows the primary button on the right. The reason is because we want the user to see the secondary button first so that they know their options before they proceed. Sometimes, items placed on the right also indicate continuation. So, what is the best way to do this? The answer is both are correct. No matter which option you implement in your design, be consistent with it. You have to also decide which option you would like to take based on the situation of the page. What would you expect the user to do? See the options first or straight to the primary button. With that being said, this is the end of the buttons series. I hope you do find values from this video. What do you think about this video? Comment it down below. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to give like if you enjoy it and subscribe for more videos.